Chloe joins us now. Chloe, hi to you. Before we just go any further, let's just remind ourselves of some of the comments from FIFA boss Gianni Infantino just yesterday.
Today I feel Qatari. Today I feel Arab. Today I feel African. Today I feel gay. Today I feel disabled. Today I feel a migrant worker.
Chloe, in light of those comments, how do you think that those workers, the migrant workers that you met, how do you think they'll be feeling about that?
I mean, it's a difficult question. I'm not sure how they would react to this specific declaration, but what I can tell you is that when I was in Doha and I was speaking to some of the migrant workers about the upcoming FIFA World Cup, the feeling I got was that for them, this celebration was something a bit distant. I mean, the daily life of a migrant worker in Qatar, first of all, they live far away from the cities, from the stadiums, from the fan zones. They live in collective accommodations outside these cities. They wake up at 5 or 6 in the morning. They go straight to work. They work all day. And when they're done, they are brought back to these collective accommodations where they're very tired. They go to sleep. And then it continues every day. It is the same. They have very little time to enjoy a football game, look at international news, or just enjoy any type of leisure. So they're seeing this from a distance. Now, when you ask them again more specifically, you know, what they're expecting from the World Cup, how they feel when they see the stadiums and all the infrastructure, a lot of them don't really see the glamour and this global football event. For them, it's also a reminder of the suffering of migrant workers that have labored for months and sometimes years under the sun to build the stadiums, but also all of the infrastructure in Doha, the roads, the airports, the metro. And so, yeah, for them, it's also a reminder of all this suffering.
Are you still in touch with any of them? Have their situations changed since then?
I am still in touch, yes, with the people that we have filmed. Their situation hasn't really changed. So Ibrahim, who is the Kenyan worker we just saw, he was exploited by a Qatari company. He had already left that company when we finished the report. He says that he was able to retrieve his passport, but that he never got his paychecks. He also says that he can't go back to Kenya because he had to borrow some money in order to travel to Doha, and that his salaries, most of them which were not paid, are not enough for him to repay that debt. So he's kind of stuck now in Doha. He's surviving on little jobs here and there. We also filmed a group of Filipino women who work in a beauty salon. They are still in Doha. They are still working very long hours to send money back to their families back home. And I think something that is also important to look at is that for a lot of migrant workers, Qatar is also a land of opportunity. They come to Doha looking for a better life, and in some cases, they do find a better life. So, yeah, I think it's important to highlight that for migrant workers, Qatar is not only a nightmare. For some of them, it's also a sort of El Dorado.
Opening ceremony, of course, it's just taken place in that stadium where we saw Simon just at the top of the show. It's a stadium where, and I quote here from The Guardian, 28-year-old Nepalese migrant Sanjib Raya died of heart failure working a 12-hour shift in 40 degrees for £1 an hour. Infantino spoke of hypocrisy from the media, but to defend Qatar to the extent that with what everything has happened, surely there's some hypocrisy in this as well.
I mean, what we've seen in the recent weeks, the debates about whether to boycott or not the World Cup, it's raising a lot of issues, and I think these issues are not new. I mean, since day one, we knew that Qatar was not a democracy. We knew that it's a small country that doesn't have enough local labor to be able to build all the infrastructure that was needed. So we knew that it was going to have to import that workforce. We also knew that these migrant workers would be working under labor laws, a set of labor laws that are known as the kafala system, which is now being reformed, but at the time it wasn't. And that system allows for human rights abuses. I mean, we also knew that Qatar is a very hot country and that it would raise environmental issues. So I think there is an element of hypocrisy in the timing of the outrage. Now is way too late to pinpoint these issues that should have been addressed about a decade ago. So I'm not saying we shouldn't highlight them or point fingers at Qatar. I'm saying that from the moment that the rest of the world said, okay, Qatar can organize this football tournament, well, then the outcome also becomes a collective responsibility.
Just to clarify to our viewers, we did try to get a FIFA representative on the programme to be able to perhaps answer back to some of the accusations that have come their way, but we did not get any positive response from them, so it's good to hear the view that you're giving to us there of both sides of the situation. In the full version of the report that you put out, you visited the courts that were set up for workers, the labour courts. They seemed quite empty at the time. Is there any news on whether they've opened yet? Is there going to be any change actually for these migrant workers who are so important for Qatar, not just for the World Cup, but for the country in general, as you just said there?
So there have been improvements in Qatar, notably an important labor law reform that introduces things like labor courts, but also minimum wage, compulsory time off. It also prohibits working outside under the sun when it's too hot. And this is one of the most progressive set of labor law reforms in the Arab world. So it's all there on paper, but the challenge is implementation. On the ground, human rights abuses continue to happen every day. A lot of the employers, a lot of the companies in Doha do not respect the new laws, and so far the Qatari authorities do not have the means to establish strict controls. One of their main issues is their human capital. Qataris are a minority in their own country. Migrant workers form between 80 and 90% of the population. So there is a lack of civil servants that would be able to go on the ground and really pinpoint all of the abuses. And so moving forward, after the World Cup, Qatar can either choose to pursue the reforms and work on the implementation or not. And the risk is that once the football fans are gone and once the spotlight turns away from Qatar, well, migrant workers might sort of fall back into oblivion and then go back to being shadow workers nobody really cares about.
Right, well, I'm sure you'll be following that very closely. Chloe Domat, thank you very much for your insights in Beirut there. Well, let's go.